We know you have a lot of ways you could be spending your time, and it means so much to us that you're here for Castle Hills Christian Church, online church. We encourage everyone to minimize distractions, to grab a Bible, and to prepare your heart and mind to worship, learn, and fellowship together online. Later in the service, we'll be taking communion together, so we encourage you to grab some bread and some juice to prepare for that later on in the service. We're asking everyone to fill out a connection card at chccsa.info. There you'll find all kinds of other information about our church. We'd love to connect with you at chccsa.info. Let's worship together.
Heaven thundered, and the world was born. Life begins and ends in the dust you formed. Faith commanded, and the mountains moved. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Freedom conquered, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus has overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied when the stone was gone. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Oh, oh, oh. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on and on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none besides you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Oh, Jesus. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none besides you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust with your heart and lead me in your blood to those around me, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. And holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Those around me.
Perception is reality. Perception is reality. This is a statement that's been used over the decades to either cause division or to cause people to laugh. Okay? One way it causes division is in conversations that actually try to stop conversations. If you want to, all you got to say is, my perception is my reality, so I don't have to listen to whatever you're saying right now at all. Or it can be used to make fun of videos. There's something that's going on for the last year or so on social media. It says POV, point of view, and then it has something there. I was watching one the other day. It said, point of view, you have an older brother. And the camera angle is from the height of a young teenager looking up at his older brother, and his older brother is wearing the younger brother's clothing. Right? And then it cuts to the younger brother grabbing a bag of chips, and the older brother comes over and just snatches it away and says, what are you going to do about it? And I start laughing and chuckling at this, not because I thought it was okay what was happening in the video, but because I could totally relate to that. That was totally my point of view growing up. As I walked into my older brother's room and I saw him, lo and behold, wearing clothes that I had just gotten. No explanation, no asking, hey, can I do this? Just doing it. And I've heard that sisters can relate to this. Perception is reality, at least in some sense. And maybe you might struggle with that phrase. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you've heard people say it to you before and they use it to stop the conversation. I'm not meaning it in that way. What I'm saying is this: how you perceive the world, your reality, impacts how you operate and how you live within it. How you perceive reality impacts how you operate, how you act, and how you even treat others. And so why do I say this? Well, if perception is reality and it has influence over how we act and treat and operate, then your perception on who God is really matters. Matter of fact, it matters more than anything else. And truthfully, this is what is at the forefront, and I believe center, of what Jesus is talking about in his parable that we're going to be covering today in Mark chapter 12. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and go to Mark chapter 12. I've really enjoyed watching and listening from afar the sermon series that you all have been going through, talking about Jesus' parables, small stories, big significance, and it's so true. Jesus' stories are entertaining, they're captivating, but more importantly, they call us to action. They call us to change our way of thinking and therefore to change how we live our lives. And that is what our parable does today. And so as you listen to this parable that's often called the parable of the wicked tenants, might be a better way of saying the parable of the evil tenants or the evil farmers. Point is, I want you all to be thinking about this. What is the call to action? What's Jesus getting at here through this story? Something else to be thinking about is, what are the shocking moments in this parable? I really do believe in some of Jesus' parables, the shocking moment is where the lesson is trying to go through and teach us, right? So pay attention to the moments that are supposed to be shocking to us. Even if maybe you've heard this story before, try to approach it freshly. Third thing, keep in mind, what Jesus is trying to talk about here is, how do you view God? What is your perception on God? And with that, let's go ahead and begin by reading Mark chapter 12, starting in verse 1. It says this: Then Jesus began to speak to them in parables. A man planted a vineyard. He put a fence around it, dug a pit for its winepress, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenant farmers and went on a journey. At harvest time, he sent a slave to the tenants to collect from them his portion of the crop. But those tenants, they seized his slave, beat him, and sent him away empty-handed. So he went and sent another slave to them again. This one they struck on the head and treated outrageously. Well, the owner sent another servant, and that one they killed. This happened to many others, some of whom were beaten, others killed. Well, he had one left, his one dear, some translations say beloved, son. Finally, the owner sent the son to them, saying, they will respect my son. But those tenants, they seized him. And they said, this is the heir. Come, let's kill him, and the inheritance will be ours. And so they seized him, killed him, and threw his body out of the vineyard. I want to keep this idea of point of view going. And I really believe that this parable shines light on 3 points of views. The first point of view is viewing God as distant and indifferent. If you're listening to the story being told by Jesus, the shocking moment does not come in the first few words. It's not that you have a man, right, who plants a vineyard. He hires out workers for it, and that he goes away, but he enters into a deal with them that although these tenants do not own the land, they will get a share of the fruit, but most of it will have to go to the owner. All these things are normal during the time of Jesus. They would probably say, yeah, we know so-and-so down the street, that's the case for them. It's pretty normal. No, the shocking moment comes when the tenants do not keep their end of the relationship going. It's when they take the owner's servants and they seize them and beat them and strike them on the head. Some, they just send away with nothing in hand. Some, they don't send away at all. They kill them. Every person listening to this, either back then and today, should be frightened and bewildered by what in the world is going on here. The violence just continues to progress and progress and progress, even to the point that the owner says, I'll send my son. They will respect him. And yet they see the son coming. They say, come, let's take him, kill him. And then the inheritance, this land will be ours. What is happening? That someone would take a human being and treat them as just a mere thing. That they would take someone made in the image of God and therefore worthy of respect and just treat them like an object. And then they have the audacity to say that, well, now that the son's killed, we can own the land. Imagine, if you will, you would never do this, but imagine going out, killing someone, going to the judge, and then saying, yeah, I just killed them, but now I own their land. They would look at you like you're crazy. They send you to prison. So what are they thinking, these evil tenants? What are they doing? Well, if perception is reality, maybe the better question is, how do they perceive the owner? And more so, what I think Jesus is really getting at here is, how do people view God? The owner in Jesus' parable sounds a lot like God. There's a passage in Isaiah 5 in the Old Testament that describes God as the owner of a vineyard. And matter of fact, says kind of the same way Jesus lays this out here in Mark 12. So this is not just a small story talking about how tenants treat an owner. It has big significance. It's, how do people see God? How do they see God? Well, we've kind of already given the answer. It's this: they see the owner, they see God as distant and indifferent. See, God can't be physically seen. And even though he's real, he's distant, right? He's on a journey, if you will. And they just assume he's not coming back. He's not showing up. So when he sends his servants, we can do whatever we want to. Because either one, he is too distant and can't show up, or he is too indifferent. He won't show up. So we can behave, we can break the relationship however way we want to, because God, this owner, is distant and indifferent. And to be honest, there are times in our lives, either seasons or durations, where we view God similarly. We see God as far away in heaven and has no care for us here on earth. This point of view can lead to many different reactions, but I think there are two primary ones. One is this: you end up acting like the tenants, and you view people as just objects to exploit and therefore to fulfill your desire. The second, which I think is the more common way to respond to this idea of God being distant and indifferent, is to view ourselves as worthless. I work at Ozark Christian College in Joplin, Missouri. It's a place where we train men and women for Christian service. These are students who desire to do ministry in some capacity, whether that's in the church, on a nonprofit, in business, whether that's volunteering or that's vocational. They desire to be in servant leadership doing ministry. I read a lot of 17 to 22-year-old papers. And although I can honestly say Gen Zers are hard to understand, there are some aspects that are just the same as the past generations and even my own. Tell me if this doesn't sound like something you've heard before, of struggling with worth. I read one paper that said this, and I think I've read probably many papers that have said just this: I just don't think God really loves me after all the sin I have done. Another paper says, yeah, I started dating so-and-so and did things I shouldn't have, even though I really didn't want to do those things. But I did them because I thought I deserved to be treated like that. Another paper said, I don't open up to anyone because I was hurt by someone I trusted, and I don't want that to happen again. And the list could go on and on and on. When we view God as distant and indifferent, it is not too hard to end up viewing yourself and viewing others as worthy of being treated in such fashion. And although, friends, perception is reality, church, we are supposed to preach and teach and act and treat people like that perception is a lie. It just is. It's a lie. If Jesus were to stop the parable right there, then maybe we could start to think that this point of view is correct, but he doesn't stop the parable right there. No, he continues to go on. Listen to this, picking back up in verse 8. So they seized the son, killed him, and threw his body out of the vineyard. What then will the owner of the vineyard do? Well, he will come and destroy those tenants and give the vineyard to others. Have you not read this scripture? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our eyes. No, that's not the point of view. The second point of view that you're supposed to really have is that God is present and benevolent. There are three shocks in this parable. The first shock pertains to how the tenants respond to the owner in trying to break the relationship. The second shock, though, pertains to the owner and his actions. Think about it. On paper, this sounds foolish. Someone breaks a relationship with you, and yet you send your servant to try to keep that relationship going. They break it again. He sends another servant, trying to keep the relationship going. They do this over and over and over again, numerous amounts of times. He gets to the point, he says, fine, I'm going to send my son. They will respect him, trying to continue that relationship. What in the world is he doing? And yet, church, I think we can have the same response, same question. How could God accept me back? How could God forgive me after the 77 sins or 777 times or the 7,777 sins I've committed? And yet God says, I forgive you and my grace is abundant. You see, what is happening here is that the owner is not acting foolishly. He is behaving benevolently. He just continues to give them chance after chance after chance to be in the relationship, to mend that, to reconcile. And this is what God desires for us. God is not indifferent. God is graciously benevolent, desiring, wanting to give us care and love and justice. Here's the third shock. Not only how many chances that he gives, but that he shows up. God is present. God is present in this parable as the owner showing up. Christian, God is present with you in your life. God desires to be in a relationship with you, skeptic. Let this be your default point of view. God is present and graciously benevolent. Do not respond like the evil tenants do to the owner's son and servants. Do not respond like how the leaders in Jerusalem and Rome respond to Jesus. Respond by opening up the door as Jesus says, I knock at it, and whoever lets me in, I will eat and be with them. And yet, we will continue to struggle to have this point of view. But the good thing is, I think Jesus recognizes this, that we struggle to view God as present and benevolent. And that's why the story doesn't stop there. It actually stops here in this verse. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our eyes. If you read the entire Gospel of Mark, you will find out by the end of it that the son in this parable clearly represents Jesus. He too is seized. He too is put into captivity. He too is treated unjustly. He too is beat upon the head. He too is killed. He too is thrown out of a vineyard, if you will. And yet this passage from the Psalm says the stone, or we could say the son, that was rejected has become the cornerstone. Cornerstone is sometimes misidentified. All this word really means is it is the stone that is at the top or the pinnacle spot of a building. It is where everyone's eyes are supposed to go to. It is what makes the building recognizable. It is the thing that identifies what even you are looking at. It's kind of like the Tower of the Americas, massively tall building. You have that dome at the top of it. When you see that dome, when you see the structure, you recognize you're looking at the Tower of the Americas. That is the cornerstone, if you will. But remove that top, remove that dome from the top, and now you don't really know what you're looking at. But with it, you not only recognize the building, but you recognize the city, the state, the country, and even the hemisphere of the world that you are in. This is what Jesus is for us when we are supposed to perceive and envision God. As Paul says, Jesus is the image of the invisible God. And so when you struggle to view God as present and benevolent, remember Jesus. When you have been abandoned by all those people that you have put your trust, remember that Jesus' name is also Emmanuel, God with us. Remember how though the earth is a footrest to Jesus' feet, he ate with his disciples and washed their feet. Remember, although Jesus by Peter was denied, that Jesus brought Peter back into the fold and declared him justified. Remember how though Jesus was deserted at the cross and the crowd yelled, "Crucify, crucify, crucify," multiple times, he prays to his Father, saying, "Lord, forgive them for their crimes." Church, here's the big significance of this passage. When Jesus is our vision, he needs to be our vision. Our perceptions on God shift from seeing him as distant and indifferent to seeing him as present and graciously benevolent. I'll say it again. When Jesus is our vision, our perceptions on God shift from seeing him as distant and indifferent to recognizing that God is present and graciously benevolent. But if we continue with the train of thought, perception is reality, and therefore how you perceive the world impacts how you act and operate and how you treat other people. Then therefore, what is this perception, what is this vision supposed to do? And that leads us to this third point of view, and it's to view our neighbors as loved by God. What's the call to action that Jesus is getting at here in Jesus' teaching? See and treat people like God sees and treats you. I really do believe it's that simple. But it's not always so simple in practical life. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to let Jesus be our filter, if you will. Now, I'm not talking about those destructive filters, which is what I consider them on social media, that you upload a picture, you press a button, and it makes you look drastically different to where you don't even look recognizable anymore. At the end of the day, friends, I think those filters only fuel competition. They only inspire depression. And at the end of the day, they are just purely toxic. I'm not talking about that type of filter. I'm talking about one of those filters that you apply to an old school photo. You know those photos? The ones where it's grainy, it's dark, shadowy. You can see the people, but it's kind of hard to really see the people. But then whenever you apply this filter to it, now everything becomes more smooth. The light is better utilized. It becomes more effective of a picture. In other words, you can see the people for who they truly are. That is what Jesus does for us as our filter, as we put him over our perception and we look at others and we even look at ourselves. We see people through Jesus, and so therefore we treat ourselves and we treat the people we come in contact accordingly. I believe the best way that this happens is in community. Christ truly does change lives. And a changed life is one that's with God. It's one lived in community. And it's one lived for others. And so here's the question that I want you all to be asking yourselves. How can I grow deeper into my church community? I really, truly believe that we are able to see the power of God's love and grace and presence in community whenever we meet in living rooms, at dinner tables, at coffee shops, in parks. And so, as you are trying to think through how can I live this out, of not only viewing God the right way, but viewing my neighbors the right way as beloved community, ask these questions. Who do I need to forgive? Who do I need to give a second, third, fourth chance to? Who do I need to sit down at a table with? Who do I need to connect with again? When we're in community, it allows for people to remind us that we are loved by God. And it gives the Spirit the permission, gives the Spirit the power to prompt us to tell people how much they are loved by God and that God is not far from them. I want to finish with a story here. In 2018, maybe you remember this case that took place here in Texas of a woman who got off work. She was a police officer. She was off duty and walked into her apartment. As she walked into her apartment, she saw someone there that she did not expect to see there because she didn't expect to see anyone, and this person was unrecognizable to her. This man got up, started approaching her. She pulls out her weapon and ended up shooting and killing him. Fast forward just a little bit, she comes to find out that she had walked into the wrong apartment. That the apartment that she had walked in was the man's apartment that she had just killed. Of course, she is arrested and she goes to trial. And in our court system, we have a tradition of allowing the family members of the victim to speak if they would like to. And so a man gets up named Brant, and he is the brother, the younger brother of the man killed. His name was Botham John. Brant gets up and speaks. I'm not sure what you would say in the moment as you're looking at the person who had just killed someone who practically raised you. This is what Brant said. If you truly are sorry, I forgive you. And I know that if you go to God and ask him, he will forgive you. I'm speaking for myself. I love you just like anyone else. I'm not going to say that I hope you rot and die just like my brother did. I presently want the best for you. I don't even want you to go to jail. I think giving your life to Christ would be the best thing Botham would want for you. Afterwards, Brant gets up, asks the judge if he can approach the woman to give her a hug. The judge allowed it, And he does so, embracing the killer of his older brother, her saying, "I'm sorry," him saying, "I forgive you." I think Brant had the right point of view. He had the right filter. Let us go and do likewise, allowing Jesus to be our vision, showing us the true reality that God is present and gracious and that he is benevolent, and that in community we're able to share with one another that truth, saying to one another that we are dearly beloved by God. One of the pictures that we should have in our minds as we envision God is the night that Jesus was betrayed. We've kind of already talked about it with him washing his disciples' feet and dining with them when he says, "This is my body," and he gives out the bread. He said, "This is my blood," and he pours the wine and passes it. We do this every single week in our churches, called communion or the Lord's Supper, as we remember the night Jesus was betrayed. In these next few moments, I encourage you, think back through that night that Jesus was betrayed, and allow it to inspire and engender prayers of thanksgiving, that even though Jesus did not have to lay down his life, he did so that we could have eternal life. He says so himself, "No one takes up my life. I willingly lay it down." So for the next few moments, as you take the bread and as you take the cup of juice, remember that Jesus loves you and died for you.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. Oh, I worship you. I worship you. You are darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are here, touching every heart. I worship you. Worship you. You are here, healing every heart. Oh, I worship you. Oh, I miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Oh my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
We're excited to know that some of you are ready to take some next steps in your faith journey. We want to come alongside you, support you, and equip you through this process. chccsa.info is your central hub for all next steps. If you want to submit a prayer request, talk to someone about getting baptized and giving your life to Jesus, or you're looking for a place to serve or a place to get connected to our church, chccsa.info is a great place to start for all these next steps. Some of you call Castle Hills Christian Church your home. And if that's you and you want to continue to partner with us financially as we serve both here in San Antonio and around the world, you can go to give.chccsa.com or you can text the message GIVE to the number 210-903-5440. Thank you for your support. We're so glad that you're here today, and we hope to see you next week.